I've got one perfect free agency addition for the New Orleans Saints, a player that they must pursue at a position they must address. We got all that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert, credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a senior writer and reporter over at Saints News Network. And on today's episode of Locked On Saints, Avonte Taylor, New Orleans Saints cornerback, very happy that Baker Mayfield is locked down over in Tampa Bay. We're going to break down that move and what it all means for the New Orleans Saints and for the NFC South as it moves ahead. For Mock Draft Monday, we're going to do this, that, or the other. I have three-round mock drafts that all include trade backs. I know the Saints don't do it, but I'm going to show you why they should. And you're going to tell me whether you want this trade, that trade, or the other one. So we got that. And then to kick everything off, I've got a perfect free agency match for the New Orleans Saints, a player that they must pursue at a position that they must address in free agency. And I'm going to share it with you. I want to get to all that here on today's episode and much more. New Orleans Saints also have a visit lined up with a cornerback, whole bunch going on. So let's break it all down here on today's episode. We appreciate you very much for being an everydayer here on the Locked On Saints podcast and for making us your first listen of the day. Here's a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers are going to get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's right, $200 if that first bet wins. You can head over to fanduel.com/lockedon to get started today. Josh Uche, the former New England Patriots edge rusher, is the perfect free agency addition for the New Orleans Saints as free agency gets underway. Yes, Josh Uche, the New England Patriots, or former now New England Patriots edge rusher, to me is a perfect fit for the New Orleans Saints, not just in what they want, but let's be real in what they need at the edge rusher position. We're going to be breaking that down here. I'm recording this like as free agency is about to open up, so I might miss some big moves. I'm going to try to keep an eye on the news as I'm going through and discussing this as well. I just don't think that the Saints are going to be super involved in kind of that big first wave, or at least they're not going to be a part of those market-setting contracts. We've seen that already. Guys like Landon Dickerson now landing as an interior offensive lineman, a $21 million per year deal. Just insane. And with the salary cap going up more than people expected, I expected we're going to see a lot of those contracts come through where we go, what, why, how? But I don't think that the Saints are going to be messing around too much in the market setting conversation, which is usually what kind of these first 2 days of the legal tampering period before free agency officially opens on Wednesday is all about. But the Saints could wait until after that first wave, and then at the end of the first wave or at the beginning of the second wave, maybe land a guy like Josh Uche, 6'3", 240 pounds, had just 3 sacks last year with Matheiu back in full force. But when he was kind of tasked in holding down the pass rushing responsibilities for the New England Patriots 2 years ago, back in 2022, 11 and a half sacks. So you've seen the potential there, and the Saints don't need 11 and a half sacks out of him. He would be in rotation with a guy like Cam Jordan, with a guy like Carl Granderson. Let them go out there and get pressure on the quarterback. But you need a guy that's going to be able to rotate in along with Peyton Turner and Isaiah Foskey and Tano Passanio and whatever collection of those guys are around here this year. I think getting a guy like Josh Uche makes sense. The reason why is because I think that the athleticism that he brings to the position is akin to the athleticism that works so well for Zack Baun. And if you think about it, 6'3", 240 pounds, they're effectively the same player. I just think that Matheiu has a little bit more experience putting his hand in the dirt and playing a little bit more of a traditional style of defensive end, but can also win around the edge as an athlete with speed, with bend, all these other things that we saw Zack Baun do extremely well. There's a chance that Zack Baun sticks around here in New Orleans. There's a chance that Zack Baun ends up taking another deal, another contract somewhere else. If he ends up doing so, I think a guy like Josh Uche would make a ton of sense. And if you look back at some of the things that people are expecting for his contract, we're not talking, market setting, record breaking types of contracts here for a Josh Uche. Spot Rack, which is one of the sites that handles like salary cap information and all these other things. They do something called a market value. So that's basically their prediction on what they believe a player's market value is going to look like. And their expectation for Judon is to around like $8.3 million per year. You can deal with that if you're the New Orleans Saints. You can backload that a little bit. You can get some of the funny money as a part of it and everything like that. But I do think that there is something to just being able to say, okay, well, this is a decent enough contract that we can just deal with it if you're the New Orleans Saints. So, I'm very into what the Saints could do with a guy like Josh Uche. And that's why I think that he's one of my perfect fits in free agency for the New Orleans Saints. Now, I do like some of the other big things that you could see, like trying to figure out if they want to get into the trade market somewhere. I just don't see that. You could see them go after a wide receiver like a Tyler Boyd. T. Higgins has asked for a trade out of Cincinnati. But just like I don't see them making a big splash in free agency, I don't see them making a big splash in the trade market either. I think those two things kind of go hand in hand. And the big difference is that when you're doing a situation to where you're bringing in a free agent, you can dictate the terms of the contract. If you're trading for somebody, you already have something that's negotiated that you have to build off of. And that's not necessarily the MO of the New Orleans Saints, is it? They want complete control over the specificities and precision of what that contract might look like. So Josh Uche, one of my perfect targets, but not the only good target that the Saints could absolutely go after. In fact, the Saints are actually already meeting with somebody at this point. They actually, according to Nick Underhill over at New Orleans Football, are hosting slot cornerback, formerly of the Philadelphia Eagles, longtime Philadelphia Eagle, Avonte Maddox. Now, this creates a lot of interesting conversation. I think that a lot of people would see, the Saints are hosting a cornerback. That must mean that they are going to trade Marshon Lattimore. It's not as one-to-one with that, but I can see the logic behind it. Avonte Maddox is not an outside corner. He's a 5'9" slot corner. Played over 100 snaps there in the 4 games that he played last year. Played over 200 snaps there in the slot in the 9 games that he played the year before that, or the 8 games that he played before that. No, it was 9. 9 games he played before that. And then over 600 in the 16 game season that he played just a few years ago. So you can already hear, first of all, there's an injury issue here that's got to be of major concern. I think injury as well as medical, those things have to check out. I think if you're signing Avonte Maddox for slot depth, somebody to compete with Alontae Taylor in the slot to help bolster it all up, then that makes sense. But the other thing that I can see people making the logical jump to is trade Marshon Lattimore, move Alontae Taylor to the outside, and start Avonte Maddox in the slot. I think you're taking a step backwards if you do that. I'm still very much on the train of, yes, the door is open for a trade when it comes to Marshon Lattimore based on what they did with his contract, but they shouldn't trade him. Here's an example as to why. You trade away Marshon Lattimore, and you're very likely to end up with guys that are new to your system, that aren't the fit that maybe you thought they were, whatever it might be and everything. But look, Alontae Taylor on the outside, that's where he plays his best game. So you're looking at one of two things here. Either the Saints are bringing in options so that they understand how to move things around when it comes to the cornerback position if they do something crazy and trade away Marshon Lattimore. On the other hand, you might just be looking for depth because right now they don't have depth at the slot corner position. Remember, the guy that was behind Alontae Taylor was Ugo Amadi. He was on a 1-year deal. He isn't back in New Orleans so far. So there is no slot depth at the moment. So Avonte Maddox could be that guy. My biggest concern with him being a starter is, can he stay out on the field? And if you don't have everything set up to where you've got your starting slot cornerback and your backup slot cornerback, then that means that if you start this guy, trade this guy away, if Maddox in the slot gets hurt, Alontae Taylor is going to move back into the slot. Then you have somebody, your 4th corner, your 5th corner starting on the outside. It's not a great team building sort of experiment to go about it that way. So while I don't think that the Avonte Maddox visit really signifies much about Marshon Lattimore, I can 100% understand the logical leap that it takes to get there. It's not a very big leap. I get it. I just don't think that it's the smartest team building way to go about things. But if you're signing Avonte Maddox, or if you're having Avonte Maddox come in to visit because you're looking for depth at slot corner because you don't have that, that to me makes perfect sense. All right, coming up next, we're going to go this, that, or the other. I've got 3 3-round mock drafts, all of which include a trade back. Just entertain me for a little while because I want to know, you want this one, that one, or the other one. We got that coming up for you as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience, all the things that will make sure to bring you home a winning trophy are all the same things that keep your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything that you need to maintain your vehicle and help take it to the next level. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits to LED headlights and much more. Whatever it is that you're looking for, whether it's speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you're going to be able to find everything that you're looking for, everything that you want at the price that you need. And it's all guaranteed to fit your ride with eBay's guaranteed fit. It either fits every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. It's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win with eBay Motors. Keep your ride or die alive today by visiting ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply, and eBay guaranteed fit available only to U.S. customers. All right, family, we got this, that, or the other in three-round mock drafts, all of which include a trade back. But first, we've got big news. New Orleans Saints linebacker Demario Davis set to finish his career with the New Orleans Saints after accepting a contract extension. We appreciate you very much for making us your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget to go and check out the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 national sports YouTube stream, the first of its kind over on YouTube, with NFL free agency and all the news pouring in. It's a great way to keep up to date with the moves that are happening, but also understanding why they're important. So if you're an NFL fan, it's a perfect time for you to go and check out Locked On Sports Today on YouTube. Go and check it out and subscribe for that national sports 24/7 stream. All right, so the New Orleans Saints come to a contract agreement, a reworked deal with Demario Davis that will now keep him in New Orleans not only for 2024, but adding an additional year, 2025. It's a 2-year contract, just over $17 million. And so that's probably going to bring down his $10 million base salary cap hit. They'll probably save some money here in 2024 doing this. The Saints have done this now with not only Demario Davis, but also Tyrann Matheiu. And so these two moves telling you a lot about who the New Orleans Saints are on the defensive side and where the culture and personality and all of that comes from. So huge news when it comes to Demario Davis sticking around in New Orleans for at least an extra year. Remember, he was going into the final year of his contract here in 2024. Now he will remain through 2025. Demario Davis, without a doubt, has been, behind Drew Brees, the best free agent acquisition of this franchise's history. I do not say that lightly. I truly mean that. If you're thinking, well, Ross, what about Jonathan Vilma? Remember, Jonathan Vilma was a trade with the New York Jets. It was not a free agency acquisition. So for me, when I look at the opportunity to keep Demario Davis, and not just keep Demario Davis in your uniform for an extra year, but also allow Demario Davis to do what it is that he deserves to do, which is retire as a New Orleans Saint, the team that effectively revitalized his career. Remember, he shared that story about effectively being done with football until the New Orleans Saints came around. What a cool story. What an incredible person. The enormous impact that he has had here in the city of New Orleans, to an extent in the state of Louisiana as well. And then you look at what he's done in the community. You look at his, you can so transparently how much he loves his family, like what a good role model. And then you see what he does as a leadership in the locker room, and then how he performs out on the field. He set his career high in sacks just 2 years ago, matched that career high with 6.5 again last year, a consistent 100 plus tackle guy for this defense, all of that, just incredible stuff. So really, really cool story here. Demario Davis sticking around in New Orleans, not just on a contract extension, but setting himself up to retire as a New Orleans Saint, which this organization and this player absolutely deserve to be tied together in the anthems of history because of that retirement. So that's going to be a very sad day, but a really cool day too. And this is a really cool day for now, because you can expect to see Tyrann Matheiu and Demario Davis continuing to lead that defense along with Cam Jordan for at least the next 2 seasons. All right, so I got this, that, and the other one for you when it comes to 3 mock drafts. So I did 3 round mock drafts. I traded down in each of them. 2 of them I traded back from 45. 1 of them I traded back from 14. I'm going to give you all 3 of them. Then I want you to tell me which one you like more. So let's start with the one where I traded back in the first round. I do not see the New Orleans Saints doing this, but I wanted to go through sort of the exercise of it to show kind of the value of trading down. The reason why a lot of teams don't trade down is because they feel like where they're selecting, they can get a really, really good player. If they trade back, they can get 2 players, but they're getting 2 less good players, right? So they're getting 2 lesser players by moving back. But sometimes it doesn't have to necessarily be like that. And I think that this is one of those years where the talent between the first round and the third round is like pretty tightly grouped together. Then there's a big drop right after the top 100. And then you start getting into value again right around 150. Like if I'm the New Orleans Saints, I'm not trying to make any picks between 100 and 150. Or so. Like there's just nothing really there that I'm super into, just based upon the way that we're seeing projections fall now. We'll see what happens when it gets to the actual draft. That's going to be very different. So, okay, I wanted to gather another at least one more top 100 pick so I can get 3 top 100 selections instead of 2. Here's what they look like. The first one is me trading back in the first round. Just roll with me on this. Trading back from 14 with the Philadelphia Eagles. I went and got a second round pick back, got a pick 53. So give me back that 5th that got sent over for the Trevor Penning trade and all this other stuff, or the pick that turned into Trevor Penning and all that. Give me back one of them seconds. And then I'll take a first as well. So trading back from 14 to 22, getting 53, and then I had them throw in a 5th round selection as well. And so at pick 22, I grabbed Brian Thomas Jr., the wide receiver out of LSU. So not only did I trade back, but I went double blasphemy. I traded back and I drafted an LSU player. What are you going to do? Call the cops? Leave me alone. Brian Thomas Jr. at 22, get the big possession receiver. Continue to build your offense with a wide receiver core that's young and can be together for a long time. Like I really, really like this idea. So Brian Thomas Jr. there, get him on the rookie deal. At pick 45, the original second round selection, I grabbed Chop Robinson, the edge rusher out of Penn State. Big body, big build, a lot of length, but a lot of speed, athleticism, and bend as well. So it's a blend of what the New Orleans Saints love and what they're learning to love all at the same time. And then at pick 53, I went with Florida State defensive tackle Braden Fiskey. I just think that him and Brian Brzee next to each other for a long time could be a ton of fun, especially with all the athleticism that both bring. So that's Brian Thomas, Chop Robinson, Braden Fiskey. That's our first mock. Our second one here, we stick at 14, but we trade back from 45 with the Green Bay Packers to get 58 and 88. I wanted a pick in the 50s and a pick in the 80s. That way I get those 3 top 100s, remember? So I went with, at 14, Olu Fashanu. He was there. That's an easy selection for me. At pick 45, the original second round selection, I went with wide receiver out of South Carolina, Xavier Leggett. And then in the third round at pick 88, the new pick that I got from trading back, I went with, Xavier Leggett was at 58. That was part of the trade back. My apologies, not at 45. Then at 88, I went with Jeremiah Trotter, the linebacker out of Clemson, so that you have your next linebacker after Demario Davis. A couple years behind Demario Davis and Pete Werner, maybe mixing in where he fits in, getting where you fit in kind of a situation, and then eventually he becomes the next guy. So the second mock was Olu Fashanu, Xavier Leggett, Jeremiah Trotter. And then the other is also sticking at 14, Dallas Turner. That's an easy pick for me too. And then trading back with the Houston Texans to get 59 and 86 out of 45. Then I went with offensive tackle Kieran Amageji out of Yale. And then at 86, wide receiver Malachi Corley out of Western Kentucky. So it's Dallas Turner, Kieran Amageji, as well as Malachi Corley. So I get the defensive tackle, the offensive tackle, and I get the wide receiver all in that one. If I had to pick my favorite one out of this one, man, this is tough because I love the trade backs in the second round. I love being able to get Olu Fashanu, love being able to get Dallas Turner, but then being able to turn around and pair Olu Fashanu with a couple of selections like Xavier Leggett and Jeremiah Trotter, and then getting Dallas Turner, being able to pair that with Kieran Amageji and Malachi Corley. Like, I'm kind of sky high on all these. I think maybe if I wanted to do something a little bit differently, I could go like Dallas Turner, Xavier Leggett, and Jeremiah Trotter. I'd be really happy with that too. But honestly, I like all 3 of these. So this, that, or the other one, which one you like? The Brian Thomas mock, the Olu Fashanu mock, or the Dallas Turner mock? Let me know. I'm kind of torn between the Dallas Turner and Olu Fashanu one. I think I'm leaning a little bit more Dallas Turner because I think Dallas Turner is going to be one of those like amazing players in the NFL, Micah Parsons like. And so I'm really, really set on that. But I also know like, man, Olu Fashanu could be that all-pro guy on the offensive side too. His play might not be as flashy because he's not tackling the quarterback, but my goodness, the long-lasting impact that he could have would be pretty present there. So let me know which one you like. Appreciate you very much for playing along here. All right, coming up next, Alontae Taylor, New Orleans Saints cornerback. Pretty excited about Baker Mayfield returning to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What does Mayfield's return mean for the New Orleans Saints? We got that coming up for you next as we continue on to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. If you've been wanting to get into the betting game, it's March. It's the time to get it done with March Madness. You can say goodbye to all the brackets, all the bracket busting, all that, because FanDuel is going to let you bet on every single game in the tournament. You don't have to pick one team to go all the way. Just go game by game, and you can have a ton of fun and win a lot more, probably, over at FanDuel. I know I'm terrible at brackets, but I love being able to bet on games. You've got the NCAA men's tournament, NCAA women's tournament. You see the heat between South Carolina and LSU. Are we going to see a rematch in the tournament between those two teams? There's going to be so many storylines and so much for you to get in on with college basketball underway. And you have to get in on FanDuel right now because new customers are going to get, you ready for this? $200 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet as a new customer. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines, and you can even pick, of course, who will win it all. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. Wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Saints with a look at Baker Mayfield signing across the division. We appreciate you very much for being here. Don't forget, we are your team every day. Make sure you come back tomorrow because we're going to have a lot of free agency coverage. And actually, before we get into this final topic, let me tell you a little bit more about what we've got and how you can get it. So I'm going to be doing a lot of different, obviously we'll have our daily shows as we always have when it comes to free agency. But I'm also going to do anytime that there's, one or two moves or anything like that, finding, a big move, I'll do a quick 10-minute video on it along with the big 30-minute, usual show and stuff like that will happen the next morning or the previous evening. That way you get specific looks at that player, specific listens to, when it comes to that player, and then, the bigger stuff. So you might hear like some kind of repeated stuff because I'm aware that not everybody watches or listens to every single episode, but I just want to make sure I'm putting out the content so that whatever you're looking for is there. And then, of course, this is a great time to be a part of the Locked On Saints Insider Program as well, which you can join by heading over to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSaints, or you can text Who Dat to 504-285-7473. And if you do that, then you're probably going to be the first person to hear about these signings, as opposed to having to wait for an episode and everything like that. I'll send quick notes. And then more important, or maybe not more importantly, but something that I know people love is film study. Got our film study program back. I can't do film studies here on YouTube, but I can do them for you as an insider. So if you join the insider program, you'll get film studies on the new additions, where they fit, all these other things. And I'm very, very excited about that after my long, restful weekend. So I'm ready to get started here with free agency. And look, it's not just the New Orleans Saints who are ready to get started with free agency. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers making a big move as well. They sign a Derek Carr-like contract of their own, and that is with the look at Baker Mayfield, $33 million per year, 33.3333, right? That kind of a thing. It was a 3-year, $100 million deal with incentives and things like that in there. But it's effectively the same contract, or very close to the same contract that Derek Carr got with the New Orleans Saints last year in terms of how much the payout is in the first 3 years and all these other things. So almost identical deals. So if you're the New Orleans Saints, you probably love this move. And one of the reasons why the New Orleans Saints might like this move, because they might feel that they're going to be very successful around Baker Mayfield or against Baker Mayfield. And certainly one New Orleans Saints cornerback felt that way, Avonte Taylor, who quote tweeted the news that Baker Mayfield had been re-signed and called him one of his favorite quarterbacks. You know why? Avonte Taylor has 2 career interceptions. He's also got 2 consecutive games with interceptions going into this offseason because he intercepted Baker Mayfield for his first career interception in week 17, then turned around and got another interception the very next week, week 18, against the Atlanta Falcons. So, Avonte Taylor, who was inches away from getting that first interception. You saw it against the San Francisco 49ers, his rookie year, one that they said he was out of bounds. I still don't know that I necessarily agree with that. There was another one later on against the Atlanta Falcons that he almost reeled in, all that. Was super close to interceptions every time. Also had one wiped off the board from a penalty from another player on the same play over on the defensive side and everything. And so the floodgates might have opened up here for Avonte Taylor thanks to Baker Mayfield. And look, I think that the impact here for the New Orleans Saints is actually pretty minimal. And the reason why is because the Bucs aren't changing. Right? They kept Mike Evans. They kept Baker Mayfield. They're expected to keep Antoine Winfield over on the defensive side. Chris Godwin's still there. Like, the continuity is a good way to go. If you want a winning team and you're a team that just made the playoffs, you probably want to keep around the players that helped you get to the playoffs. So it makes perfect sense. I'm not calling it illogical or a bad move by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at all, but just in terms of the impact that it has on the New Orleans Saints is that, well, you build your team to win within the division. That's the same team that you played last year. So your team's already built to win within the division, right? Now you're looking at the Atlanta Falcons and wondering, okay, so now what are they going to do at quarterback, right? Where's Raheem Morris going to go? What's Zach Robinson going to put together as the offensive coordinator over there? All that. Those now become the more pressing things because Carolina is going to sleep for a season. Tampa is staying the same, still good, still a threat in the division, but they're staying the same. And it's the Saints and the Carolina Panthers that are going to see the most changes going into this season. Now, Tampa could still see some changes in terms of how they do things differently over on the offensive side with new offensive coordinator Liam Cohen there, a guy that the Saints liked a couple of years ago as well, but wanted to go back to Kentucky, and then he went to Los Angeles, and then now he's over in Tampa. After Tampa's Dave Canales has moved on to be the head coach now over at Carolina, trying to develop their young quarterback and Bryce Young. So we could see some changes offensively in terms of the system and the approaches and things like that they do. But as many teams will tell you over and over again, there's, you're kind of all doing the same thing. You just kind of call it differently and you do it at different times. So it's not going to be too terribly different. So I think that actually works in advantage for the New Orleans Saints is that, they get to continue to tinker, change while the other team that maybe is their biggest threat or was their biggest threat last year, at least as the team that made the playoffs, stays the same. And you had a lot of success against that team the last time that you played them, right? And so I think that can go a long way for New Orleans. So I can see, understand, and appreciate Alontae Taylor's excitement and why he would call Baker Mayfield his favorite quarterback in the NFL because he's the quarterback that he got his first career interception off of. But also on top of all that, I think that kind of aids the New Orleans Saints in terms of things just not being super different around what it is that they are expected to see from Tampa. So I think that works in their favor. All right, so free agency is now officially open. New Orleans, no moves as of right now, but aside from the Demario Davis move, which broke during the show, so we were able to get that into the second segment there. We'll discuss a little bit more about that impact later on as well. I don't want to shortchange that. That's a big move for New Orleans, and it's huge for Demario Davis too. But I want to make sure that we are keeping you up to date with everything that's going on. So this is the episode for Monday, but if they make more moves, I'll see you again before the day's out. And then of course, we'll be here recapping everything every morning, every day, every evening as well. Don't forget to check out that Locked On Saints Insider program. Join subtext.com/Locked On Saints. You can get on the film studies, first notice, all those other things. And then otherwise, I'll make sure you got everything that you need here on Locked On Saints every step of the way. So I appreciate you very much, as always, y'all, for making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day, every day. Hey, pop quiz. Which NBA team has the longest active win streak? The New Orleans Pelicans. That's why you got to go check out Jake Madison and Locked On Pelicans because Zion Williamson is looking ridiculous. He is incredible right now. And so is Herb Jones. And so is Trey Murphy. They look like such a fun basketball team. And can we please just get the official Skeleton rebrand? Let's just go all in. Anyway, go and check all that out with Jake Madison over at Locked On Pelicans. And of course, you can find Caroline Fitton as well, breaking down those LSU Tigers over at Locked On LSU. Appreciate you as always, making Locked On Saints a part of your day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me and the show. As always, if you see me, please say hi. And if you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you living. Let me know how you momming them. And trust you, that nation. I'll holla at you.